What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Beyond the Sign, a real estate podcast. I'm your host, Frank the Bank Gropman. I'm here with a new co-host, Christine the Legend LaCava. How you doing, Christine?
I'm doing well, Frank. How you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for being on the show. I know Tanya was on the show for a long time, and now you're going to be here moving forward with us. So before we really get into the nitty-gritty of the show and the real estate talk, why don't you give the audience a little bit, let them know a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm super excited to be here. I lived in Wareham for a very long time. My kids went to Wareham School. Selling real estate here in Wareham and surrounding towns for over 18 years now.
Yeah, you've been in the business almost as long as me. I mean, I've been 20-something years now myself, but I call you the legend because you do so much work around here. I actually do a podcast with your nephew, Keith, and I know your family very well. So it's really cool to have you on the show, and I'm sure the viewers are going to really appreciate your expertise and everything like that. So we're going to start off with our first segment, which is always the Property Pulse. So the Property Pulse, why don't we get into that? And Christine, why don't you give us a little bit of an update on the Wareham market?
All right, let's get into the numbers, because if you're thinking about buying or selling in Wareham right now, you need to understand what's really happening. So right now we have about 40 active single-family homes on the market. Looking at July through early October, homes are sitting on the market for an average of 35 days, and the average sale price is about $545,000.
Okay.
We've seen 68 transactions close in that time frame. And how does that compare to last year? For that same three-month period in 2024, we had 74 sales. So we're down about 6 transactions, which is not a lot.
No.
The days on markets have dropped from 38 days to 35 days, so that's relatively in the same ballpark.
Yep.
And the average sale price last year was $551,000. So it's less than a 1% difference.
So pretty status quo. I mean, it's kind of what we talked about before in Wareham. It's been pretty status quo with everything. It seems like things are very similar to last year. There hasn't been too much of a change at this point. So that's kind of what you're seeing out there right now?
I am, yes.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. So, I mean, the inventory, it's still about a 2-month inventory out there. I feel like we still need more inventory to have more of a balanced market. Is that kind of like what you're thinking too?
Yeah, it is. We're still in a very tight inventory, especially in that, first-time buyer market. In the luxury home market, it's softening a little bit as far as sales go.
I agree with that completely. So that's some great stuff for Wareham. We'll touch on a different town next week. Why don't we jump into the mortgage minute? I mean, everybody always asks about rates and what's the rate at? What's the rate at? So what are we seeing for like an average rate right now, and what products do you have?
30-year fix is running around 6.3 to 6.4%. 15-year is about 5.5%. A 30-year FHA is about between 6 and 6.1, and a VA 30-year fixed is about 5.7 to 5.8.
Right. I mean, that's pretty good, so not bad.
Yeah, Frank, now that we're talking about rates, wasn't there some big news that came along affecting rates?
Yeah, so I mean, what everyone always is watching is what the Fed's going to do. What's the Federal Reserve going to do? And for the first time in 9 months, they actually dropped the federal funds rate, which typically mortgage rates will follow as well. So that's kind of what we're seeing here at the rates being down. When we first started the show, me and Tanya, we talked a lot about the rates being close to 7, and then they were 7 last year, and so on and so forth. So the federal funds rate did drop. We're seeing the rates actually come down to what you were just talking about, the 6.3 to 6.4 area for a 30-year fix. That is actually if you look at the average, is the lowest it's been in over 10 months. So, I mean, that's really the biggest news that we've seen. And they're actually talking about dropping the rates. So it will depend on obviously how inflation does. That's how the Fed, again, combats inflation, is by dropping the federal funds rate. So depending on how the economy is doing and inflation and stuff like that, we may see further drops. So, I think that's the biggest news that we've seen. So.
Yeah, because like you said, a few months ago, the rates were at 7%.
Right.
I know when I bought my first house back in 1993, I paid 6.5. So I feel like today's rates, comparatively, they're pretty good.
I mean, that exactly. So I mean, you see, and obviously, even before that in the 80s, rates were 18%, 15%. Sometimes, I heard of it in the 20%, even way back. So to be in the sixes and low sixes and mid sixes, I mean, it's kind of where you need it to be for everything to be working correctly. Hopefully it gets a little lower. Maybe you can buy a point. Maybe you can do some different things and get your rate even into the fives. That would be a huge help. So, I mean, and again, we'll see what the Fed does. We're always watching what they do. Hopefully that still helps people with their mortgage rates moving forward. So.
Yeah, no, agreed. So what do you think this, means for the buyers?
Well, I mean, a lot of it comes down to there's some buyers sitting on the sideline trying to wait to see how low the rates will actually come. But right now, rates being good, again, like we just said, even months ago, they're 7%. So you're talking about, like, if you have a $500,000 mortgage or you are pre-approved for a $500,000 mortgage, now your affordability goes further. You can either buy a house that's more expensive, meaning that what you could afford a few months ago is different now, because now you can actually afford more. So you're saving about either $300 to $350 a month in your mortgage payment if you keep the purchase price the same, or you can move forward and say, you know what, instead of that $550,000 house, maybe now I'm pre-approved for $600 or $625 or something like that. So affordability is huge. So I feel like when the rates are coming down, a couple of things are going to happen. One, people are probably going to buy more expensive houses, or they're going to actually get off the sideline and start getting into the market and say, all right, rates are actually pretty good right now. Historically, as you just said, it's even less than what it was when you bought a house in 93. So at the end of the day, I think you're going to see an influx of buyers. So.
No, I totally agree. I think that buyers have been sitting on the sidelines, waiting for rates to drop in, hopes that they're going to go back to what they were during COVID times, which I don't think that's going to happen.
That might never happen again. I mean,
No.
that was just one of those things where we really needed it to help kickstart the economy, and that's the way they did it, and slow down inflation, because the cost of everything, including houses, went crazy, and then that's really why the rate got so low. So,
Exactly.
Good point there.
So what do you think it means for the sellers?
I mean, with sellers, I think yours and mine, our message is always the same, like, price your house accordingly to today's market. So if we're seeing an influx of buyers, or if we're seeing, prices coming down, if your house is priced correctly, right, it should sell, okay? Now, if we're seeing more buyers come off the sideline, the market will shift into hopefully higher prices for sellers. Or if we're seeing less buyers, then it's going to come down. So right now, again, I think what we're going to see is, if you have higher demand, which we will see with lower rates, so lower rates equals higher demand, more buyers coming into the market, then you're going to actually see the prices start to come back up again. So, I mean, I'm sure that's what you've seen too. I mean, inventory is still low too. So when inventory is low, it's just simple economics. Demand's high, inventory is low, prices go up. That's just the simple economics there. So, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same. I think, buyers, like we said, have been sitting by. Properties are sitting a little bit longer on the market.
Yep.
But I think if a property is priced correctly, it will sell. I think it's going to grab the attention. If someone's a serious buyer right now in this market, they're going to look at it and hopefully make an offer. And, but again, more buyers means more competition. So if you are a buyer out there and you don't want as much competition, now is the time to start looking, if it's the right time for you to make a move.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, everything that we see, it always comes down to price. Almost always is the reason why a house will or will not sell is the price. So you're absolutely right. I mean, buyers, again, on the sideline or not on the sideline, demand's still fairly high right now, and we're seeing inventory still low. Inventory is better than it was last year, so there is a little bit more for buyers to choose from, which is good for buyers. But we're still, again, we're about 2 months supply, I think we talked about in inventory. So we really need it to be about 3 to 3.5 months to have like kind of a neutral market where there's enough supply to meet demand. So that is something that once we get to that, I think it'll be really level. It's leveled out a tiny bit like we talked about in the stats, but overall, I think you're absolutely right there. So Well, awesome. That was a great segment there. So why don't we get past the Mortgage Minute here, and let's get into the best part of the show, the good, the bad, the ugly, the closing confession. So This is your first closing confessions, which is great. I know you deal with and sell a lot of new construction, newly constructed homes, which is awesome, really cool. So that's going to be the topic for this show today. So why don't you give the viewers a little bit of an idea of why and some of the things that you see and some of the things that you run into. I mean, one of the things that I run into, and I'll ask you first here, is that, I see a lot of buyers ask the question, it's newly constructed, it's a brand new home. Do I really need a home inspection? It's brand new. I mean, what do you say to that? What do you think about that?
And some buyers, no matter who they are always going to have an inspection.
Yep.
But there's also buyers out there, well, why do I want to spend the $800 to have a home inspected when I know that it's brand new? I do think there's a few reasons you should have a home inspection, even on new construction. For one, you want to get familiar with that home. A home inspector can point out how things work, maybe point out some maintenance tips that you're going to need down the line, because nothing, stays brand new forever.
That's true.
And also, you want to make sure that things were done correctly. Even though every town has a building inspector and they're going to come through, they're looking at different things than a home inspector does. They're looking for code and safety issues, which a home inspector will look for that kind of stuff as well. But they're also looking for make sure things are working properly. Are the windows opening and closing? Are they not going to fall on you? Stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
It's always a good idea to have a home inspection, no matter what, whether it's a brand new home or a 100-year-old home. It gets you familiar with the property.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, you see a lot of different things like that, and again, just because it's newly built doesn't necessarily mean it's better or there's something not broken or done wrong. So you definitely want to nip that in the butt, you know what I mean? So, and another thing too, and that I do, and I'm sure you do this, but Google's your friend, you know what I mean? So Google's your best friend in this situation. You should definitely research the builder that you're having build your house or buying from, just to see if they have a ton of bad reviews. That might sway your decision to get a home inspection even more, you know what I mean, than not.
For sure.
So definitely do that as well. So I'm sure you've run into that and seen that as well, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I do recommend that my buyers Google and make sure, listen, one bad review, would I necessarily say,
no.
But if there are multiple bad reviews and it's the same sort of situation, that might be a red flag.
Right.
I also try to do a little due diligence on that as well for my clients to see if there's any, buzz out there about this particular builder. And again, it all comes down to making sure if you have that home inspection that if there are issues that you try to get them cleared up before you close on the property. Even though probably most builders will offer a warranty on stuff, it's better to take care of it.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're getting a warranty, of course. That makes sense. So that's awesome. I mean, you must have run into some horror stories. I've seen some horror stories over the years. I know I have a few, and I've heard of some, but I mean, I know you deal with it a lot more than me. So I mean, give us an idea or a story that may have happened recently or over your career that something to look out for, maybe.
Yeah. So actually, something just happened recently. I have a client that was out of state, so I was previewing a few new construction properties.
Awesome.
Went into one that looked nice. It was still in construction, but when I went down to the basement, there was actually a huge puddle in the basement.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Near the bulkhead, and we hadn't had rain. I mean, this summer was kind of like,
It was pretty dry, yeah.
Pretty dry and humid. And the basement had that really musty, moldy smell.
Oh, yeah.
There was boxes down there that you could tell had like what appeared to be mold. Of course, you'd have to have it tested to say for
mold.
sure.
It smells like mold, looks like mold. It's probably mold, but let's get it tested to be sure, yep.
Yeah, so the stuff like that, I conveyed that to my client, and they chose not to, have any interest in that property just for that fact. I mean, in new construction, typically, most builders will run a dehumidifier because, concrete, it takes a while for concrete to cure, and there's a lot of moisture in it in general. So on top of that, having a humid summer adds to that moisture.
Very humid, and nobody's living there, so the house is pretty airtight. You're not opening and closing windows and garage doors and any of the front door, and so yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So that's when things can arise, and so it's always good to look at that kind of stuff and make sure, you know, that you don't run into those situations. Because, you know, warranties are limited in what they cover, you know,
Right.
so, and also in Massachusetts, it's not a law that a builder provides a warranty. It's
Yeah,
up
absolutely.
to that individual builder. So, you know, you want to just make sure you're protecting yourself
That's
no matter
smart.
what type of property you're buying.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, you nip it in the butt before it even starts. I mean, you see that, hey, you know, it seems like there might even be some mold here, or mildew, or something going on. I mean, you find that right off the bat, then that's a good thing. And again, something to look out for, just another thing. So that's smart. I mean, I've seen some crazy stories, but if it's something that from 2001 to 2009, the Chinese drywall stuff that happened was insane. If anybody wants to look that up, it was absolutely crazy. Chinese drywall was imported from a certain company in China, and it was used especially in Florida a lot. But I mean, even around here, I've seen it on a couple different listings. It could be Chinese drywall. So yeah, what was happening is that people would move in, and they'd a lot of the time smell an odor, like it smelled like either burning candles or sulfur or like a gas. And what was happening was these pieces of drywall were actually contaminated. Different things were coming off of these drywalls, and it was making people very sick. So there was whole communities that were having problems with this drywall. So if it's something, you should definitely look it up and see if you haven't, you know, read about it or seen it. It's kind of crazy. So again, you never know really what you're getting into. So it's really good to have a home inspection, and a home inspector would hopefully know what the difference was. But again, it's still one of those things that it's
That's a unique horror story.
that was
for
like
sure.
really crazy for those 8-year periods. So it's really that was kind of scary. So but yeah, I think all those things you're saying, for sure, builder's home warranty is very important. Get a home inspection is very important. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and make sure you have a qualified agent that is, you know, versed in new construction.
Yeah.
You know, because again, the builder is, you know, representing himself. You know, so the town is also just doing code compliance. A home inspector is working for the buyer, and they're working in the buyer's interest. And it's always good to have somebody on your side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking out for your client's best interest is huge. So, I mean, that's something that, you know, over the years we both had to do that in many different things. So, anything else you want to add? Any, you know, bottom line you have, you know, things like that?
No, I mean, I think we've covered it pretty well as far as, you know, making sure you have the warranty, your home inspection. I mean, those are just a few things, I mean, to look out for. And Google is your friend, you know,
Google is
make
your
sure
friend.
you're researching things. It's always good to be well informed.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we're going to talk about different things. Most likely next time, we talked a little bit about home inspections today, but there is a new law in Massachusetts for home inspections that should be going into effect fairly soon.
October 15th,
Yeah,
I
it's supposed to
believe.
be the 15th. It's got moved once or twice, but it's going to be soon. So on our next episode, hopefully we'll talk about that. If not the next one, then the following one.
Sure.
But, you know, I love having you on the show. I really do appreciate you coming on. And
Yeah,
thank
it's
you again to
fun.
Tanya. And, you know, we'll, if there's anything that you guys want us to talk about, me or Christine, you know, send us a message through any of the social medias, and any topic you want us to cover or anything specific. Yeah, we'd be happy to cover it. So.
Yeah, because we love to talk about real estate.
That's very true. So we'll see you next time. Thank you guys so much.